Hello and welcome once again to the ShareLife Speaker Series as we explore the timely topic of grief at Christmastime. My name is Chris and I'm part of the ShareLife team. If you're new to the speaker series, this is your chance to meet incredible people serving our community through ShareLife funded agencies. People like tonight's guest, Amanda Wendelgass. Amanda is working on the front lines of our community and has so much wisdom to share with you. Your support makes her work possible, so this is a small way we can give back to you. Let's begin by preparing our hearts to receive what she has to say by starting with a prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, as we gather tonight in our homes across the Archdiocese, we turn to you for strength and comfort. Bless our time together, Lord, as we navigate our experiences of grief during the Advent and Christmas seasons. We know you are with us in our mourning. Impart your truth and your light through what Amanda has to share with us tonight. Amen. Before I introduce Amanda, I would just like to mention a couple of points of housekeeping. After our presentation, those joining us via Zoom will have an opportunity to ask your questions. And you can do so using the Q&A function on your screen. That should be right there with the other Zoom controls, and we'll get to as many as we can in the time remaining. And secondly, yes, we will be recording this presentation. So if you have to step out, you'll be receiving the link to the video tomorrow for everybody who is registered through Zoom. And also we'll be uploading the video to our social media channels so you can find us there. Now I'd like to introduce our special guest tonight. For the past 5 years, Amanda has served as the Adult Education Coordinator for CFS Counselling and Wellbeing, and she has a deep passion for enhancing the well-being of our community. She has a rich and diverse background within the agency, from her contributions in the intake department to her impactful work in the community programs. And I should note that CFS stands for Catholic Family Services, and it was formerly known as Catholic Family Services of Simcoe County. Amanda spearheads a multitude of engaging webinars and workshops that delve into vital subjects such as depression, anxiety, healthy relationships, cognitive behavioral therapy, and tonight's topic, grief. Beyond her professional endeavors, Amanda finds joy in her personal pursuits. Whether she is spending quality time up north with her family, she brings enthusiasm to every facet of her life. Amanda, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that beautiful introduction. And so I am just going to pull up my slides here, and we're going to start our presentation, Coping with Grief at Christmas Time. So you should all be able to see that now, which is great. So we just want to say welcome again, and what we will be talking about tonight is what is grief. So briefly, the different types of grief, what makes holiday grief different than our ordinary grief, and then I also would like to leave you with some coping skills to navigate this Christmas season, hopefully a little bit easier if this is the first season you are experiencing grief. Or maybe if it's not, maybe these coping skills can just help you manage a little bit better. So what is grief? As we know, for those of you who have been experiencing grief, it's a lot, it's complex, but it is natural. It is a natural reaction to loss, and it includes and encompasses all the thoughts and feelings we experience after a loss. And so it's important to remember that grief doesn't just happen when we lose a person. It can happen when there's a loss of a relationship, the loss of an object, maybe a sense of community, maybe after a job loss. We still go through the process of grief after those losses. And navigating the pain and changes of grief can also be super overwhelming. Okay, so the one thing, I'm just going to go back a slide there. I did take out a little bit of information, but I just want to touch on the fact that there are multiple different kinds of grief. And when we have, whether it is ambiguous grief, so grief that we're feeling before the actual loss, or disenfranchised grief, grief that happens when what we're experiencing is not supported or validated by those around us, and it's almost as though we're not allowed to grieve. We can also experience grief as in the form of secondary losses, which I think is something that's important to touch on. So when we lose a person, or if we lose a job, or if we lose a relationship, there's a ripple effect in the secondary losses that we may experience, such as, if you lost a person, there's no more trips with that person. Or if we lose a job, we lost the job, but we lost the financial security, we lost our income, we lose our sense of community maybe we had with our colleagues, we lose our benefits, right? So there's a lot of a ripple effect that can happen. So that's what also makes grief pretty complex, is that, yes, it's a reaction to a loss, but it's also kind of, we feel those ripples, that it's not just the initial loss. There's lots more that we grieve outside of that loss. So let's touch on, why is grief different during the holidays? What makes it different? So the holiday season, the Christmas season, we find ourselves, I think we fall into two categories. We're either on the hustle and bustle and have to get everything done, but there's also times where it slows down. Maybe you have some time off from work. Your activities slow down. So maybe if you're involved in social groups, they take a pause for the month of December and don't reconvene sometimes until mid-January after the holiday season. Because of all of that, you find yourselves a little more alone, a little more time with your thoughts and your memories, which makes this time of year harder, because those thoughts and memories of the loss flood in, and they make our daily routines and our daily activities a little more harder to get through. The pain that comes from this grief sometimes is super unbearable, and it becomes at odds, or kind of, you're on two different ends of the spectrum here, where you're feeling a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, but then it's at battle with that piece of you that wants to embrace the holidays, embrace celebrating, and you're at odds with it. And so you see lots of people around you, you see the house with the lights, or you see you see the trees lit up and decorated. You go to church and you see the church nicely decorated and wanting to celebrate the time of year. But sometimes if you are grieving, you don't feel like being very celebratory. You don't feel very joyous of the occasion. But you feel bad because you're not feeling joyous and you're not feeling excited about the holidays. So then we get mad at ourselves, or we feel even worse. And so it can become a really bad spiral in that regard. During the holidays, there can be also many quiet moments that leave space for the power of your loss, and can be felt in all different aspects of your body and your soul and your mind, which sometimes results in some tears, which is okay. Let those tears happen. The other thing with holiday grief is everyone's busy. You have this mindset that everyone is busy, and so that makes you reluctant to ask for help. Maybe you would be more comfortable asking for help at different points of the year. If you ask someone, would you mind grabbing a coffee with me? Or do you want to come over and watch a movie with me, or go do something to get yourself out of the house? But during the holidays, you may not ask for help from others, because you figure they're also busy with the hustle and the bustle of the holidays, and you don't want to feel selfish for asking for support. Ultimately, though, this does have and can have a negative effect, because it can lead to more of you feeling isolated and increase that fear of being alone, which increases your mourning period as well. As I said, grief is complex. and without real stages, despite what you have heard. And so I just want to touch on that for a second. Kubler-Ross, one of our grief experts, you may have heard of her, had come up with the 5 stages of grief. And although those stages are relevant and we do experience them, when we are saying, they're not real stages, the reason I put that in there is because sometimes when people say, oh, well, you're just going through the stages of grief. Yes, you absolutely might be. You might be going through anger. You might be going through depression. You may not be at the stage of acceptance, and that's okay. But sometimes when people get stuck on those stages of grief, thinking that they're linear and that you have to experience a different stage each day, or, in order to deal with your grief, you have to go through all 5 of those stages. And that simply is not true. Grief is very individual. There is no timeline. There's no start and end date. And really and truly, the grieving period, I don't think there is a real period of that. We feel it strongly at the onset of the loss, but there's going to be days for years to come where we might feel that grief come back. And so those stages, that's why we kind of reject it a little bit, in just saying, the way I like to say it is, grief is complex and it is individual, right? So how you may be choosing how to grieve, or what you're feeling and experiencing right now, maybe a friend or family member is not dealing with it the same way, but that doesn't make their way better or worse. It's individual. During the initial grieving period that may be happening in the middle of the holidays, there's going to be moments where maybe you want to be alone, and then there's moments where you want to have company and celebrate. And that can change from moment to moment. And so again, making the holiday season complex and making it challenging, because you're having an inner dialogue and an inner battle in yourself as well, thinking, you know what, maybe I do just need to be alone with my thoughts and my feelings, but then looking around and saying, oh, I'd kind of like to be at that family dinner, or I'd kind of like to go to that holiday Christmas party. Your moods will also change rapidly before and radically than they ever did before the loss that you're experiencing. So the other key word, not only is grief complex, but it's unpredictable. And I can tell you from personal experience, I lost my grandmother many, many years ago. And Christmas is always one of those times where it affects me differently depending on the year. And so there are years where I have put all my Christmas decorations up, and I've put that tree up, and I've gone through all the ornaments that she ever gave me that I still have. And then there's years where I say, you know what? It's too much. I don't want to this year. And that's okay for me. And I've accepted that I don't have to necessarily put all my decorations and tree up in order to be a part of the festive season. It's just, I choose not to different years, which is leading us into, we're going to talk about some coping skills about that, and really how we can tackle grief during the holidays. So how can you deal with it? What can you expect? Just expect and have some compassion for yourself that you're going to feel extra vulnerable if you're experiencing grief this Christmas. There are going to be rapid mood changes, and that's okay. Give yourself that time to experience the emotions that you are feeling fully, and permission to feel those emotions. Expect that your social needs will change. So like I said on the slide before, there's going to be moments where you want to be around people, you want to attend all the things, all the invites that you're receiving, all the holiday gatherings, and then there's going to be times where you don't. You just want to be by yourself. Grief or not, I think everyone can agree that during the holidays, your sleeping and eating habits change. They will not be consistent. But it is important to Exercise as much as you can and as much as you're able to feel healthy during the holidays, as well as that can distract you a little bit from the loss. So taking a walk, or if you enjoy the winter, so skating or skiing or something like that. Expect that sometimes people around you will kind of be in two camps. You're going to have people that are going to try and cheer you up, and you're going to have people who will leave you alone to deal with your own grief because they think maybe that's what's best for you. And maybe you don't want to be left alone. So the easiest solution here is to share what you need with those around you. Do you need time to yourself? Then ask for it. But if you need support and you need people there, ask for that as well. Make sure, don't think that your friends and family are mind readers, because they're not. So just ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to opt out of holiday festivities. If you don't feel like celebrating, give yourself permission. You're not obligated to participate. Reach out to others if you need to talk or you need company. And know that you may have periodic bursts of sadness and that you will feel better over time. The other thing about holidays and why grief seems to hit us differently at Christmas time is that the holidays mark milestones in our life. So if this is the first Christmas that you're going through without someone that you've lost, it can make it a little harder. The first of everything. So the first Easter, the first Christmas, their first birthday without them, it magnifies the loss. If there are certain milestones when we talk about non-finite losses, so maybe just not living the life that you dreamed of or that you thought you would have. So milestones, you thought you'd be a certain place by 30 and a certain achievement by 40. And if you're not there yet, we can grieve that as well. So holidays just really emphasize that loss. Don't pretend that you're not hurting, because this is not your truth. You are hurting and it's okay, but we want to acknowledge that. So lean into it. Don't avoid it. Grief isn't just pain. Pain is love, and grief is a way out of the pain. So while I was putting this presentation together for everyone, I came across a lot of work by David Kessler, who is a grief expert, and he runs a support group called Tender Hearts. And so this is a shortened list of what some of the participants in his group shared about grief during the holidays. And so some of the things they said was grief is isolating. There are many secondary losses. The pain of grief can hit unexpectedly. Grief is exhausting. We can experience many feelings in the one day, from moment to moment. Grief can last longer than expected. So I said there's no timeline and there's no right or wrong. It profoundly changes us. Grief brain is real. So that mind fog, feeling a little disorganized or needing to write down a lot of things because your memory is not as good as it used to be, that's a real challenge when you're grieving. You may lose patience. It can be disorienting to us, and it's transformative, which leads us into the analogy of grief in a jar, that your life will never be exactly the same again. So when we say it's transformative, when you're grieving, you are also developing a new normal. What will your life look like, and how will your life be now that you've experienced that loss? So the analogy here, grief in the jar. So on the top line, you'll see that grief is the black ball and the jars are all the same size. So people tend to believe that grief shrinks over time, so that black ball that is your grief will eventually get smaller. And when you tell someone that, when they initially lose someone very important to them, it will never feel like the grief will get smaller in that moment. And that's why I like this analogy for the second line. What really happens is we grow around our grief. a loss transforms us because we need to create that new normal. We need to create a life that looks differently than what it did with that person still here. We grow around our grief. So our jar grows, our grief stays the same, but our jar grows. And I find that's really helpful to realize that we are still capable of growing. Our grief stays with us, though. It's, as you can see, it stays in that jar. Even as our jar grows, it still stays with us. Okay. So let's move into some coping skills to try and help you navigate the holiday season this year, hopefully a little easier. I also really, really love this image here that I found from a very famous philosopher, Winnie the Pooh, who says, "How lucky am I to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard?" And that's also on another slide where we said grief is pain and it is also our way out. The reason grief is so hard is because we loved that object or that person or the relationship or the job. So that's what makes grief so painful, is that our emotions are involved. At one point, we loved that person, place, or thing kind of thing. Okay, so let's start with permission. You have the permission to cancel a holiday. You have the permission to say no and not to participate if you're not feeling it. If the holiday traditions that you and your family have still bring you comfort to continue them after the loss, do it. But if they don't, then you have permission to cancel that tradition. Or, as I shared, I don't put my, not every year do I put my tree up. And I have given myself permission to say, not this year. Not forever, just not this year. Holiday pressure that we all feel. We need to learn how to be flexible. Go with the changes. Growing that jar around your grief means we're going to find a new normal. We're going to find what works for us this holiday season. There are social pressures, media pressures, societal pressures to have that hallmark holiday, to have that perfect Christmas. And if you are a person who uses social media and some of these images, the reason I put them up there, the expectation versus reality. When we look at others on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., what you see is a moment in time that someone has chosen to post. What they don't show, like the dog in the left-hand corner, is the reality. So you may scroll on your social media and see people around you, people you know and love, having the perfect family dinner, the perfect Christmas. What they didn't post was that Uncle Al and Aunt Sally were having an argument 5 seconds before that. They don't show you the child who was having a meltdown 5 minutes ago. You saw one photo of dinner that looked perfect that someone chose to post. And so just keep that in mind as you're going through the holiday season and you see folks who are posting their beautiful photos. And I don't want this to stop you from posting any of your beautiful photos. Just realize that that entire day or that entire dinner probably was not picture perfect, right? It takes a few takes to get a good photo. Let go of the pressure to have that perfect holiday. Consider the idea that this year, we're just trying to make it work. And that means maybe scaling back. Maybe that means instead of the big Christmas dinner with 20 people around the table, that we just have our immediate family with us because that's all that you can manage this year. And that's okay too. Lastly, accept the imperfections in yourself and others and let go. Not only let go of that picture perfect idea of, having that perfect dinner, but also that it's okay if not everyone is dressed nicely or your house is not decorated from top to bottom. Maybe this year everyone is in pajama pants, and because everyone's comfortable, and that's what you need, is to have a casual Christmas this year. You get to make the rules, right? There's nothing is set in stone. Some external expressions, so some ways that we can acknowledge and honor our loved ones we could say prayers for our loved ones. We could light a candle, whether it is at our church or whether it's at home. We could create an online tribute to them. Take some time going through a photo album and acknowledging the good memories. Maybe watch a movie that both of you liked. So if you are having a gathering, take a moment around the table to share favorite or funny stories about them. Go to a special place that maybe the two of you enjoyed, and just honor that person, or create a little bit of a ritual that maybe each Christmas, this is now what you're going to do, is light that candle, or everyone say a prayer for them, or share that funny story about them. Traditions. So we've talked about this a little bit, but take some time, because your jar is growing around your grief. What is going to be meaningful for you this Christmas? Maybe an expression could be hanging a special stocking around your home, and write a letter to that loved one that you're missing and put that letter inside for them. The hotel tree. When I was putting this workshop together, this was a concept that really, really stuck with me. And because, as I shared, my Christmas, I have a lot of special ornaments that my grandmother gave me, that my mom has given me, and that was a tradition. I got a decoration from each of them from the moment my first Christmas, and I have all of those decorations. So it's a really meaningful time of year. But the hotel tree concept really grabbed my attention when I was putting this together, because for the sake of still wanting to participate in Christmas, or still wanting to have decorations and not maybe have the sadness of the memories of the ornaments, people are putting up or created this concept of a hotel tree where there was no attachment, meaning no sentimental ornaments. This is a tree that is simply color coordinated. So like the tree in the photo here, as you can, if you zoomed in, I'm sure there's lovely ornaments on there, but it's color coordinated, right? It's red, it's silver, it's gold. And what I realized when I was putting this together is that my own mom did this without me realizing that it was a thing. And I think looking back, she did this color coordinated tree, this hotel tree, for the same reason. Christmas has always been a difficult time of year for her. She's experienced a lot of grief and loss around the holidays. And so she started doing these color coordinated trees that didn't have all of the sentimental ornaments on it. They were just simply matching colors. And for her, I think that that was a way of still trying to get into the Christmas spirit of having a tree up and the symbolism of it, but not the sentimental ornaments that may upset her. So that could be a new tradition. And again, it doesn't have to be your tradition forever. It doesn't have to mean you'll never bring out those sentimental ornaments again. It just means not this year. Focus on the holiday traditions you enjoy the most, skip the rest. And also, you have permission to start new traditions, start new rituals, if that's something that appeals to you. Journaling. Journaling can be so therapeutic. And the funny part about journaling, I will say, is that when I was first introduced to the concept of this as a coping skill, I immediately went to the 10-year-old little girl in me that said, well, what is doing Dear Diary going to help me with? And then I started looking up journal prompts as a way of getting me started with the writing. sometimes that's the hardest part, is to where do I start? I've heard about journaling. I heard that it's helpful, but how do I start it? And so these journal prompts are really helpful. And I simply found these on Google or Pinterest. And so these are just some ideas that could get you writing, and you probably will end up writing way more, but it's just a way to get started. So prompts like, what helps me the most right now? What is one thing I miss about the person or the relationship or the job? What is a song that reminds me of you or the situation? What is a place that reminds me of you? What exactly am I grieving? Oftentimes we say, I really miss the person. I'm grieving the person. But when we ask ourselves this question as a journal question while we're writing, we may actually be writing out, not only am I missing the person, but you get into your secondary losses as well. Checking in with your body about, where are you feeling the sadness? Is it in your heart? Is your chest feeling tight? Is it in your stomach? Are you feeling anxious? This can be really good indicators on how you experience emotions as well. What are my thoughts telling me as I'm feeling this grief? What is one thing I need right now, which is also a good indicator when you spend time thinking about what it is that you need. It may also help you when you reach out to friends for support, saying, what I could really use right now is someone to go for a walk with. I could really use someone to go grab a coffee with. I could really use, you just coming over and just being here in the house with me. And lastly, another prompt can be, the hardest part for you is. So what is the hardest part for you going into this holiday season? Just some ideas for you. And learning how to say no. If you're a people pleaser or a reformed people pleaser like I am, learning how to say no is really hard. However, it can be really valuable as well. So learning that saying no is not selfish, and learning that saying no gives you time to pursue other interests, and saying yes isn't always healthy. Saying yes can cut others out. It can help you focus on what matters most. It can help you take guilt out of the equation. Sometimes when someone has asked you for a request, it is important to just sleep on it. Be honest, be brief, and be respectful when you are saying no. So if someone is inviting you to holiday gatherings, or maybe you end up being double booked, two competing needs, and you need to say no to one of them, being honest and saying, you know what, I made a mistake, double booked myself, I'm really sorry. You don't even have to say sorry. You actually shouldn't. And just say, hey, I can't make it to your event, to your gathering. Could we maybe connect another day during the holidays? Or maybe we could connect in the new year when things slow down. If you're being pulled in several different directions, you have to bake for your kids' bake sale. You have your own cookie share going on with some friends. You have your own work Christmas party. You have your own family obligations. You have your spouse's family obligations. And it's just all seeming too much. Sometimes we need to learn how to say, no, not this year, and that it's okay. All right. And laughter is the best medicine for many things, but especially when we're grieving, laughter can be really helpful to just help us make it through. It releases endorphins, it releases serotonin to help us feel better. Are you going to feel positive and happy every single moment during the holidays when you are grieving? No. But maybe to turn things around in your day, maybe watch a funny Christmas movie, or spend some time with friends who generally make you laugh and can kind of pull you out of maybe that bit of depression that you're feeling, because maybe you've spent a couple days grieving, you've spent some time in your emotions, and now you want to try to pull yourself up and pull yourself out and, change the scenery, change the environment. Lastly, I want you to remember what you can control. There are many things in this world that you cannot control. So you cannot control what other people are going to think or do or say or feel, or their opinions or their beliefs. You also can't change the weather. But the things that you can control are within you. You can control your actions, your effort, your words, your boundaries, your thoughts, and the choices that you make. So you have control over how you spend this Christmas season. You don't have control about how others will feel about that. And that's okay, because this is about how you are going to navigate this Christmas season a little bit better or a little bit easier. And how other people choose to do it, that's on them. And you don't have to worry about that because it's something that you can't control. We spend a lot of time trying to control things that are outside of our control. We spend a lot of time worrying about things that we cannot control. We worry about what other people are going to say or do or think about our choices, when really we can't control that. So we waste a lot of that time worrying. So we want to try to avoid that. Our time is precious. All right. So with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us today with ShareLife and joining for this really, really important topic of grief during the Christmas time. So here with us at CFS Counselling and Wellbeing, we want to wish you a safe and healthy Christmas season. We will love to see you join us for maybe some of our groups and workshops in 2024. And so I'm going to pull the slides down and turn it over to Chris, who may share some questions that you folks have asked.
That's right. Now's the opportunity for you to share your questions. You can do so by submitting them into the Q&A function of Zoom, which you should see there in your controls. Fire away. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Amanda, thank you so much for your presentation. One thing that really resonated with me is what you said about how we might feel that, well, it would be burdensome for us to lean on others in our life, even if we know these people love us, for support because, well, they're probably too busy right now during Christmas. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a downer. Especially, and it really reminded me, gosh, I hope the loved ones in my life don't think that they would be a burden to me. And so I was really a reminder that I hope that I can provide that space for them and let them know that they are welcome to express their grief and their need for support from me. And I think that's something each of us can do. Before we get into the questions from our audience here, I did want to ask you something more generally about Catholic Family Services, because probably most of the people who found out about this presentation did so because they are ShareLife supporters. And one thing that I think it's important for them to understand is the role of their support in the work and mission of Catholic Family Services and what you do. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Absolutely. So we are so grateful for ShareLife support and each of you who participate in this. So the amazing thing about the ShareLife funding and the people who donate to ShareLife is that these dollars help support the most vulnerable in our communities, and it also helps fill existing gaps within the social service system. So something you may or may not know is a lot of agencies like ours, we apply for grants and funding. And so when we apply for that, it's usually pretty rule-based about how we are going to use that funding. And so the way we provide those services kind of have to be within a box. And so the ShareLife dollars, what really is valuable is that it helps us to reach more people and provide more things because we don't have to stick within the box. There's not as many rules tied to how we use that funding. And so we can meet clients where they're at and support their most pressing needs. So specifically with our organization, with CFS, we use ShareLife dollars to support youth mental health. So we have a youth call team. We help newcomers build connections and community to our newest addition to our Sparked team. And as well, this funding helps us address loneliness and isolation with our senior population in Simcoe County with our Mature Minds program. Also, most recently, we're really excited that we were able to receive a grant to address the glaring poverty needs in our community, as I'm sure you're all more than well aware that poverty is such a huge social issue that we are facing in many communities. And so we're looking forward to supporting folks who are experiencing food insecurity in 2024. And so we are so grateful for all of your generous donations to support those in need. Thank you.
That was a great explanation. And I'm so proud as someone who works for ShareLife, part of the ShareLife team, to be able to talk about the work that your agency does. And I think that everybody who is supporting ShareLife, however much that they're able to give, should also feel incredibly proud that as a Catholic agency, you're doing this work in the community, and you're able to serve people regardless of there's no financial barriers to the services that you provide. And my goodness, like what life-saving work you're doing. And so I think that everybody who's supporting should know that they're really a part of what you do.
Yes, big part of what we do. And it helps us offer all of those supports and all of that programming at no cost to the community.
Going into some of the questions that we've received here. First one's easy one. Can we receive a copy of this presentation? Yes. If you registered, we're going to send you, it'll probably be tomorrow, the video of this presentation. So that'll be up on our YouTube account, but we'll send you the link along with some additional resources that Amanda has prepared. Really good question here, and I think this is one that a lot of people are going to really relate to. This person says, that was a very helpful presentation, thank you. Is it normal to feel like someone has passed away yesterday when it's been years ago? Is that normal?
Oh gosh, 100%. Yes. And that's what we mean when I was saying, grief can come up in, I think I said it, but I meant to say it, grief can come up in spurts. And so we may have lost that person years and years ago, but our grief comes back unexpectedly. And so, for my own experience, I like I said, lost my grandmother, super close relationship that I had with her. And there are some years that are easier. And then there are some years or days that, again, it felt like it was yesterday. And that's okay to give yourself some grace and compassion on those times where it just comes out of nowhere. We missed that person a little extra that day, or, something reminds us of them, a song, something we see, a book, there can be anything really that can remind us. And so, yes, it is still just as valuable to acknowledge our grief, even if it was years ago. So yeah, you are not alone. That happens all the time.
I'm really appreciating how personal some of these questions are, because I think that we can all relate to the emotion that's in these. Another attendee says, my husband passed away early in 2023. I've kept myself busy and have supportive friends and family, but I seem to be feeling more depression instead of the opposite. What can I do to lessen the grief? Every day seems to bring more things or circumstances that affect me.
So I think that it goes back to those milestone pieces that we talked about. So I'm sorry for the loss of your husband, first and foremost. as you are approaching the month of December, that's another milestone. And so we are also, like I said, sometimes December is either a hustle and bustle, really busy month. It can also be a month where things slow down. And so, and the weather is changing, which absolutely affects depression. And so as you're approaching the holidays, it is going to be tougher with it being the first Christmas without your husband. And so acknowledging, you know what, there is someone missing from the table. There is someone missing from the activities that we normally would do together at this time of year. So acknowledging that, but then also, what could you do maybe to honor your husband? So do you have a photo of him at the dinner table? Do you set a chair for him? Do you do that stocking idea with a letter, sending it to him, so that you're still acknowledging and, his presence in some way? You may also want to create some kind of new ritual, whether it's that lighting a candle, whether it is revisiting a place that maybe the two of you enjoyed going to, if you're able to, right? And it might be, again, letting yourself have the permission of not this year. So this year might be a smaller Christmas for you because that's what you need. And if you need to be surrounded by friends and family, then ask for that support and have the friends and family surround you with that love and that compassion to make this holiday a little more bearable.
Thank you, Amanda. Another question here. I recently lost my spouse and I have a 4.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. I see my 4.5-year-old singing and participating in school Christmas program, and I keep breaking down when he practices them at home, thinking that my husband never got a chance to see those. Any tips on how to handle this? Also, I'm expecting my 4.5-year-old to have meltdowns when we go for any Christmas gathering. Any tips on how to handle those?
All right. Ooh, that is a loaded question, and that's okay. I really admire, I like to use personal examples. So I have a cousin who lost her husband when their daughter was only 2. And I so admire how my cousin handled moments like this, Christmases like this, holidays like this, where she still included her husband by a photo collage, or they had one of those standing photos where if her daughter was rehearsing, she was rehearsing for dad too. And so that might be something that you want to do, is when your 4-year-old is rehearsing any of this and they're doing it in front of you, having that photo and say, look, daddy's seeing you as well. It may be emotional for you to do that, but it could be also really special for your 4-year-old to say, I'm performing for my parents. In terms of the expecting the meltdowns, I would try to shift your mindset that going into these family functions or these different dinners, that it's going to be okay. And kind of putting it out there that your 4-year-old isn't going to have those meltdowns. And because we don't want to kind of not encourage them, but manifest them in a sense. We want to hopefully have a safe and happy holiday season. Not to say you shouldn't be prepared, but we also don't want to be hoping for them and hoping for the worst. And that if they do, I think it's important as a young person that you take some time with them, as I'm sure you have already, to acknowledge their big feelings too. Children, especially young children, they have emotions. They are natural reactions to things as well. And as a 4-year-old, when you have big feelings, you don't necessarily know how to process them. So it's important to, if your 4-year-old is having a meltdown or is having a tantrum, to really chat with them and say, okay, I see that you're really frustrated right now, or I see that you're really sad right now. What is it that you're sad about? Can you tell mom what you're feeling or how you're feeling, or can you describe it? And it's really teaching your child about emotion regulation and also exploring those big feelings that they're having as a means of saying, hey, their emotions are valid too. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Another question here, and I'm a bit of a people pleaser myself, so this one also I find very relatable. What advice do you have for managing expectations from others during this time? Because you said it's perfectly okay to say no, but for a lot of us, the most difficult thing for us is like, oh, I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to disappoint the people that I love. So it's a little easier said than done, maybe. How do we do that?
Absolutely. It is totally easier said than done to learn how to say no for the people pleasers in our audience tonight, and even just generally in life. And so I think it's important to be honest with yourself. Are you able to give the time for that function? Do you have the energy? Do you have the emotional capacity to take on one more thing? So being honest with yourself about whether or not you think that that is something you can take on. And if it's not, it's okay to be honest with the person and say, listen, I just do not have the capacity. I just don't have the energy. Are you going to feel guilty still? Probably. Unfortunately, I can't take that guilt away, but acknowledging your needs is really important when we're experiencing grief. Acknowledging your time and your capacity to handle a crowded room, which may be just too much right now. And so just that awareness of where you are at in your own grief, in your own process, and being honest with yourself, I think is my best advice in sharing that honesty with the other person and saying, I'm finding it really difficult to be in large gatherings right now. I'm finding it really difficult to leave my house right now. So it's not that I don't want to see you. It's just that right now having a bunch of people at your house is just not something I think I can do. Could we meet one-on-one later in the holidays? So just really an awareness of what your needs are, and that is not selfish, right? It's about self-care, and it is about your own grief process.
Another great question here. How to deal with struggling with my faith in God, that he would allow a loved one to be taken away when Christmas is a celebration of God's own son's birth. I don't know if it's a tricky one, because it's maybe a slightly theological question.
Yes.
But a lot of our audience would be people of faith, and yeah, those questions about why we're going through this when we have a loving God are really at the forefront.
Yeah. And I think that that's a natural progression of where our thoughts go, is when we are trying to find solace in our faith. And we also kind of are feeling like maybe in this moment you were let down because God took your loved one. And I think back to something my mom had always said to me, is that God challenges his strongest followers. He does not give you more than what you can handle. And also, there is a reason in his larger plan for us of maybe why that person had to leave at this point in time. Does that make your grief easier? Nope. Does that make your questioning easier? Probably not. But if we find comfort in the fact that our loved one is safe, and within our faith, we believe that they are in heaven, we believe that they are in a much brighter, happier, lovely place, not to have something taken away from you or someone taking away from you. But I like to think of it as someone who's already up there waiting for us. You know, they're kind of paving the path for us in a sense, and they're just getting our place ready for when it is our time to go. And again, a little self-disclosure, going back to my grandmother, is when she was in the hospital and I was unaware, I did not want to acknowledge that she was not going to come home with us from the hospital. You know, she said something to me in the hospital, and she said, "Oh, Amanda, I just want to go home." And I said, "You know what? Yes, I want you to get better, and I want you to come home too." And in that moment, my grandmother was a religious woman. And what I came to realize after she had passed was that when she said home, she did not mean coming back to where she lived on this earth. She meant home as in heaven. She wanted to go be with her husband. And so, as hard as that was for myself and our family to accept and to learn how to live without her, I found comfort and peace in that eventually, that she wanted to go home and that was her idea. And so, yes, this is a time where we celebrate Jesus and his birthday, and it is a very celebratory time. I do think that he doesn't take people away from us on earth as punishment or for any negative reason. There is a greater reason out there. There is a greater path that he has for you and for your family, and we just may not have those answers right here and now.
We've got a couple questions here about resources that are available. In terms of grief counseling, or another person is asking about ongoing support group in person. What's out there? I know that you can probably only speak to CFS Counselling and Wellbeing up in Simcoe County, but there are CFS agencies in Dufferin Peel, in Toronto, York Region, Durham, which probably offer some similar programs.
So, as far as I am aware, all of the CFS agencies offer counseling, and any of the therapists are registered psychotherapists or social workers, master level social workers. And so you would absolutely be able to access counseling through your local CFS agency. There may or may not be a wait list. I know for our agency, we offer in-person and virtual counseling counseling sessions, I apologize. And what our rules are, the way we do it is that folks can get 2 free sessions a month, as long as there are open spots. We do appointment based. The other place to reach out to can be your local hospice. So some of the local hospice places offer grief and bereavement groups, or some one-on-one support. I know, or peer support groups. I know at Simcoe County, they have walking groups and coffee groups. I would also reach out and see, I did put this in my resource list, but see what your own churches have. You know, maybe there's something within the leadership within your congregation that maybe, if enough people ask, maybe there's a little bit of a group that can be put together within your congregation members. But looking out to, you may also reach out to some Canadian mental health groups, may have some grief support.
Oh, it looks like we've lost Amanda. I'm hoping that everybody is hearing me. We're not seeing her. While we wait for her to come back, I will just add to what Amanda was saying, in that one of the 5 Catholic Family Service agencies, CFS Toronto, they run a group called New Beginnings, and that is deals with grief from separation and loss, whether it's divorce, remarriage, or bereavement. What we'll do is, in the resources that we will share with you by email to all of our registered participants, we'll include links to the relevant sections of the CFS agencies that are again located all across the Archdiocese of Toronto, and that way you can find the group that's nearest you. I know that there are in-person groups now. That's something that is happening now that the pandemic has lessened. Those have resumed, and so there are some great resources out there. I understand Amanda is coming back now. I think that we've got her back. Just give it a second here. This can happen with our webinars. And while we're waiting for Amanda to come back, I just wanted to share one comment that we received here, which I thought was really quite beautiful. This person says, "I've had someone ask me if I'm done grieving yet. Your advice has given me that space and time for it to be okay. Thank you." And yeah, I think that probably all of us are in a similar space where we're not done grieving yet, and this is a place where we can say it's okay. Amanda's back. Okay, Amanda.
I apologize. My computer decided it wanted to restart. So,
oh no. Okay.
I am so sorry, but I am back.
It happens.
Technology is beautiful when it works properly.
Sure.
So resources, I don't know if we got the tail end of that, of just looking at local community mental health organizations. Sometimes they may have grief groups as well. That is one of the other places I would check in with.
Okay, thanks very much. And as I mentioned to the participants, we'll share links to the CFS agencies across the Archdiocese, along with the resources that you're going to share, so that people could find some of the groups that are near them. And that covers all of our questions today. And Amanda, I want to thank you for really thoughtfully preparing your presentation. I really also appreciated what you shared personally about your experience with your grandmother. I think we can all really relate to that. It helps to hear your advice from someone who has been through it, you know.
Thank you.
And it's not just something that's abstract, but it's something that you've experienced. So I appreciate your vulnerability there. I want to thank also you haven't seen her, but she's behind the scenes, Jennifer Lazo, who runs our speaker series events, and is none of this would be able to happen without her hard work and managing situations like what happens if our speaker drops off the call. So thank you very much for that, Jennifer. I also want to thank all of our participants who are here. Sometimes it can feel like everyone loves Christmas, while you might dread the season because of the feelings that come along with it. Your choice to spend this past hour with us tonight, wherever you live in the Archdiocese, tells the others who are joining us via Zoom, and the many others who are joining us via our live YouTube stream, that we aren't alone in that experience. And I think that's very powerful as well. We will be sending this video again to all participants. We encourage you to share it with others, share it with someone in your life who who does need that help. One last thing, I will mention that, again, thank you so much to those of you who have given to ShareLife this year. Your gift allows CFS, allows Amanda to do the work that she's doing in the community. If you would like to give, make a year-end gift to ShareLife, if you've maybe not given yet this year, now is a really great time to do so, because we have a matching gift promotion right now. So if you give to ShareLife, anything up to $500,000, an anonymous donor within the Archdiocese is going to match that gift. So it's a really great time to help your community. Amanda, again, thank you so much for all your time that you've spent with us tonight. It was really, really valuable.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, I apologize for my brief absence as technology decided to take me away, but I'm back. And I'm so glad that I was invited here tonight to share with all of you. And I hope that it was helpful for participants and for future participants who are going to watch the recording. So thank you so much, Chris.
And let's just end with a prayer to our Mother Mary, who experienced loss herself. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you all. And